Dear Santa, this year sucks, and I can't get into the holiday spirit. I haven't even decorated yet, except for Lazy-Eyed Santa, but he doesn't count. Anyway, I wish to feel some non-denominational holiday magic. Amen. Thanks, Santa. First, students will require 3 sets of plain work robes. 1 plain pointed hat, black for day wear. Pointed black hat. Please note that all pupils' clothes should carry name tags. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm waiting right here for Hagrid to come because he's gonna kick down this door and take me to Hogwarts.
Doesn't school start in September?
Yeah, school starts in September, but the letter didn't say that they weren't gonna come early and pick me up. So I'm gonna wait right here until they come because I don't want to miss them.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
2,000 years later.
Boy, you better get up here. I'm making some chili. Oh my God. I swear, if he kills himself again, he thinks he can just go off and kill himself and die all the time, and I'm just gonna come over here and I'm gonna save him, but I swear to God, next time I am not doing it.
Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium.
Boy, I am not saving your dumbass again. Just go paint those Harry Potter minis and please stop dying.
I have Harry Potter minis?
Yeah, I got them for you last Christmas.
Oh yeah. Okay. What's happening, hobby people, and welcome to episode 3 of the Dry Paint Pot Holidays special. Now, if you haven't seen episodes 1 and 2, I'll be sure to put them up top so you can check them out and get all caught up. So today, we're jumping right into things, and this week's tutorial is for the Harry Potter miniatures game community. Now, this game is made by Knights Models, and they're a company out of Spain that are known for their metal and resin models. They're also known for making the Batman Minis game. And I've got a really sad story to go along with this. So I wanted to play the Batman Minis game really bad. I bought the rulebook, I bought Gorilla Grodd, his crew, and some other model. I can't remember what it was. I knew some people who were playing the game and they were going to teach me how to play. But the thing is, all of a sudden they just kind of disappeared. They just stopped playing the game, or they stopped coming to the store where I was playing. So I was stuck with this rulebook and models, but no one to play with. Fast forward like a year, and I really want to get into the Harry Potter game. So I'm searching on eBay, trying to find some models, and I found Fred and George for like, I think $7.99 with free shipping. And for $7.99, I can't pass that up for like any model. So I bought it, boom, comes to my door. I'm excited, I want to paint them up. And then I ended up like taking on a handful of commissions and doing a bunch of other stuff. Bottom line is I didn't have enough models to play because I just had those 2. I didn't have the rule book, and I didn't have anyone to play with. So I've had these models sitting around for 2 different games that I've meant to play, but just haven't. And this is why I'm so excited to paint these models today. I'm hoping that I have such a good time painting them that it'll just force me to grab the starter set and really jump into this game because it looks so cool and they have some of the coolest models out there. The downside is they're resin. And if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that I can't stand resin models. But I'm going to give these a chance. So let's jump into things and see what happens. Now, the first two things that we're going to focus on are the pants and shoes. They're both supposed to be black, but if I cover them in, let's say, Abaddon black, they're going to look primed and unpainted. Also, most things, especially clothes, are not pure black. The Weasleys are no strangers to hand-me-downs, and their clothes are described as being old and worn, so I'd imagine they'd be a bit faded. To get this look, I decided to mix Mechanicus Standard Gray and Abaddon Black. We want the pants to be very dark, but not pure black. After a good base coat on the pants, it was time to knock out the shoes. For these, again, rather than using pure Abaddon Black, I decided to add some warm brown tones in there, so I mixed Rhinox Hide, which is a very dark brown, and Abaddon Black. When compared to Abaddon Black, it's noticeable that the pants and shoes are not pure black, but once they're washed, it'll be hard to notice the difference. It took me a few tries to mix the exact sweater color like what's on the box art, but after a few minutes, I got the perfect mix. I start the mix off with some Mechanicus Standard Gray, then I add just a dot or two of Cabalite Green. Now we don't want to go overboard here because the sweater is supposed to be gray, we just want to tint it and make it look more realistic. Finishing up the mix, I added just a little bit of Fenrisian Gray to add more blue, and the color is complete. When you're painting the sweater, be sure to avoid getting any paint on the undershirt that pokes out from the sweater. It's clearly visible as the collar pokes out, but it also peeks out from under the sleeves, and since they're to be painted white, we don't want to get any dark colors on there and make it harder to cover up later. This next step is the simplest step in this entire tutorial. All you have to do is paint the undershirt white. For this, I decided to go with Corax White as it's a base color, so it has excellent coverage and gives me a place to highlight later. Just like all of the previous steps, the next one requires some mixing. For the skin, I start things off with a base of Kislev Flesh. I then add a tiny dot of Pink Horror and mix in some White Scar until the mix is, well, this light. It's very important to add pink to the mix because I accidentally added too little, and Fred, at least I think that this is Fred, well, he ended up sort of yellow and sickly looking. If you've seen any of my other videos, then you know how much I love a good wash in Nuln Oil. I went ahead and washed everything except the skin. If you're following along at home, then don't make the mistake that I did and avoid washing the white undershirt. If you want it to be darker so you can add more drastic highlights later, then use a gray as the base coat and blend up to white. I wasn't happy with the skin, but I didn't want to overpower it with a wash, so I went ahead and glazed on some Pink Horror. Glazing, for those of you who don't know, is when you thin your paint down a lot, I mean really water it down, and then remove most of it from your brush. The remaining thinned paint will tint whatever you go over without completely covering up the paint underneath. Please excuse this garbage footage. I had no idea that my camera wasn't focused, but I'll still explain what I was doing here. The next step was to highlight the skin, so I added little bits of White Scar at a time and focused on the parts of the face that would catch light. These areas include the nose, cheeks, forehead, and chin. The key here is to use thin layers and not completely cover up your last layer so you get a smooth blend. To highlight the sweater, I tried two different methods. The first thing I did was add some White Scar to the base coat, thin it down, and highlight with very thin layers just as I do almost everything else. The result was smooth, but because it was so smooth, there was no texture and the sweater didn't look real. I then tried dry brushing and this was way better. I focused my dry brushing on the arms, shoulders, and chest, basically anywhere that light would catch. Once that was down, I watered down the mix and did a bit of glazing to smooth things out a bit. I finished up with some stippling and finally got the texture I was looking for. So by now you're really surprised that my footage is so rough in this video, and that's because I'm still using my iPhone for recording my videos, so I'm not really sure what's being shot while I'm filming. Also, the autofocus is sometimes great, but sometimes it's my worst enemy. As I wasn't in the mood to strip these models and start over, this was the best that I could put together. Now the Weasleys are known for their bright orange hair, but in order to later highlight, we can't start with the bright orange just yet. For a base color, I mixed corn red and Uriel yellow. I suggest going a little heavier with the red in this mix because Uriel yellow is so bright and overpowering. I didn't want to go overboard with highlighting the pants, so to keep things simple and subtle, I just went over any raised creases with Mechanicus Standard Gray. The easiest way to do this is to remove most of the paint from the brush and basically do a mock edge highlight / dry brush. I turn my brush to the side and let the sharp edges catch the little bits of paint on the brush. It takes only a minute or two and the result is great. I wasn't able to get any good footage of the tie, but it was a pain in the ass. Because it's so small, I had to use my smallish brush with the finest tip and carefully start with a layer of corn red. Once that was done, I went back with 2 small stripes of Uriel yellow and it was complete. The wand was the easiest thing to paint and I just kept it simple. I started things off with a base coat of Dryad bark. I then mixed the Dryad bark and Steel Legion drab and did a bit of a quick wet blend. Before I painted the eyes, I quickly washed the hair in Reikland Flesh Shade. This helped to darken the recesses and would have plenty of time to dry as I worked on the eyes. Painting the eye was an absolute pain. I tried to use a micro pen, but the result was either much too small or too messy. I then went back 2 or 3 times and painted the pupils with a fine tip brush and some Abaddon black. The eyes on these models are tiny, so be prepared for a headache. Going back to the hair, I added some Troll Slayer orange to the mix and covered a majority of the hair in a thin layer. It's good here to avoid any recesses where the wash settled and to not cover the entirety of the base coat. By doing this and using thin layers, a nice blend will be achieved. To finish things up, I added some white scar to the Troll Slayer orange and just focused on the top of the head and any raised pieces of hair. If you're following along at home, all you have to do now is base the models and you're all set. I'd love to give a huge shout out to my patrons, Leandrist, Che Phillip, CK, The Dark Path, Came From The Moon, and $2 Sucky Sucky. Thank you all so very much for your support, and if you'd like to help support the channel, be sure to check out the link to my Patreon down low, and if you'd like to just hang out and talk about the hobby, there's a link to my Discord down low too. Now wash your brushes, clean your paint pots, and keep on painting.